The plan for this Jeep, or this XJ, is to get a 6-inch full traction long arm kit on here. But before I do that, I figure I'd do all the other cosmetic items so that when it comes time to put the larger tires on, at least the fenders will clear them. I plan on going to 33, 12.5, 15s, and as you can see, I've already done one of the Bushwacker Pocket Flares on this one. I figured I'd do a test run to make sure I don't make the same small mistakes on the other side. Namely, I'm not sure if you can really see this or not, but I cut the little liner here a little too close, so it kind of sticks out a little bit. So now next time I know where to cut, and I'll show that in a video here shortly. So this video is going to be the install of the Bushwacker Pocket Fender Flares for a Cherokee XJ. So the first thing you're going to want to do is jack up the front axle and then put some jack stands underneath it just to kind of make sure it doesn't fall on you. And if you take the tires off, it'll give you a whole lot more room to work with. And then you're going to need a 10mm socket for these bolts right here. They're inside the fender. I think there's 9 or 10 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So there are 9 of those all the way up. I'm not sure if you can see any of that. And then behind the rear of the fender, there's going to be a small little bolt right there. And for me, that bolt was a 5/16 bolt. And same thing in the front. Right here, there's going to be another one right there. And you're also going to need kind of a big screwdriver, because you're going to want to go ahead and pry these off. The metal support bracket that's behind here is going to get cut off anyways. So this little air dam is going to come off completely. Otherwise, you can try to zip tie it up here and retain it if you want to. I plan on changing out my bumper anyways, which this comes off with it. For now, I'm going to take the whole thing off. Alright, once you have those bolts off, you can basically pry back the inside liner all the way around so you can kind of see what you're dealing with. If your Cherokee's like mine, it's going to be fairly dusty, so make sure you wear some goggles or something, safety glasses. Approximately every other attaching bolt, there's going to be like a little lock washer that goes on a screw that'll prevent it from easily coming off. So you can either pry from the outside if you can't break it off from the inside, and it is okay if you bend the metal a little bit on the lower parts, because those parts of the metal, sheet metal, is going to get cut off anyways. Be careful along the top. The top part we're not going to be cutting, so those you want to be more careful with. But like I said, for the ones on the bottom, I just pried like crazy just to break that one off. And then now I'm working to get the second one off, which I was able to pry back with the screwdriver a little bit to kind of get it started. And then you keep going all the way around to make sure all those other lock washers are gone and off. And then the fender should come off, and we shall see. Alright, once you get a couple of them started, it makes it a little bit easier to pry along the top. See if we can set the camera down and show you what it's like to pry one off. Separate the liner, get a good grip from underneath. Just like that. And I got one more down here. Not sure if you can see that one. This is the last one. And this part of the metal is going to get cut too, so I'm not too concerned about bending it. And there we go. Fender's off. As far as the Bushwacker Flares go, there are no used parts off the fender, so what I did was I took off the metal pieces here, threw the metal ones away, and then put this piece in the recycle bin. Gotta be green. And then what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this bolt off and kind of move this bumperette out of the way. It will require removing this headlight bezel to actually get to the bolt underneath. We're not going to be taking it off completely. We want to just loosen it up so I can turn it out of the way, so that as I cut, I won't risk hitting the bumperette. Now eventually it is coming off when I put the new bumpers on, but that's not for like 2 months. So for now I'm going to keep the bumperettes. To get the bumperettes off, this is a 10mm bolt right here. There's going to be one on top as well, but you cannot get to until you take the headlight bezel off. You also need a 10mm wrench, as such, to hold the nut in place, otherwise it'll just spin and not loosen. So you'll take this bolt off. Inside here in the middle is like, I don't know what you call it, the push plastic retainer things. I'm just going to pull hard enough to snap it off. I don't care about that piece. And then this one, be careful because you don't want to turn it too much, because the housing that the lenses all screw into is actually plastic, and it does crack rather easily the older your Jeep is. To start with the headlight bezel, you're going to remove the blinker or the side marker lights, these two screws, using a Phillips. All right, once you get the side marker off, twist the bulb out. And yes, I did convert mine over to LED. There's going to be 4 screws. There's going to be one up there, one back here, number 3, and number 4. Once you take those out, the bezel comes off. Alright, once you get the bezel off, you can actually kind of see that bolt in there, and we're going to basically use a 10mm wrench to hold that bolt, and then we're going to actually unscrew it with the 10mm socket wrench extension from the bottom. That will free this up so that I can move it around and pivot it out of the way. And once you loosen up that bolt, again, you don't have to take the bolt off or the nut on the back side all the way off. Just loosen it. And then what I did was give it a good tug. It'll pop this connection off. And then this can actually swivel out of the way a little bit so that when we cut, this is out of the way. At this point, I put the bezel and just kind of held it in place, made a line. The next set of instructions for Bushwhackers is basically to make a horizontal line from the edge of the bezel, right underneath it, all the way across to the inside the liner. So I'm going to do that first. Alright, and per the instructions, you're going to mark a line 5 inches in from the fender. Fortunately for me, it's easy because it's basically just on the crease. And you're going to make a line following the contour of the fender to just above the 3rd bolt. So 1, 2, 3. The line should go just above that bolt hole. And kind of make a gentle curve out of it. And you'll make a straight line all the way until it fits flush to the bottom of the fender here. This is why I said earlier, this part of the fender is not getting cut off, just this piece right here. And we're going to do the same thing on the back using the Bushwhacker measurements. Per the Bushwhacker instructions, you're going to measure 5 1/4 inches from the edge of the door seam right here, or the edge of the door, I guess. And at 5 1/4, you make a mark, and you'll basically do a contour line up the sides here. And when you get to the first thing, what I found out from doing the other side is you kind of slowly start tapering it in towards the fender opening, just a little bit, and you make that round curve up there again. And just like the front side, you'll make a line right above the bolt hole and keep it going until it cuts into the fender right here, so that this part is the original fender. The good thing about this Bushwacker Pocket Flare is that it does allow a little room for error, not a whole lot, but if you don't make the exact lines perfect, it'll still work. As I found out from doing the other side. So at this point, I'm going to tape it off because I'm using a jigsaw to actually make the cuts, and I don't want the jigsaw to cut or scratch the outside paint. So I'll tape that up with the blue painter's tape and create a line for cutting. Alright, and then once you've got everything all marked off, it is going to be time to cut. Alright, so once you've got the reciprocating saw, sawzall, jigsaw, cutoff wheel, whatever you have, you basically follow the lines, cut through all of it, meets up right there, cut right there, all the way there. In the front, what I did was just kind of angle it downwards with a sawzall, just to kind of round off the corner a little bit. And down here at the bottom, I kind of did the same thing, just did it slightly at an angle like that, and met up. The instructions for Bushwhacker says to actually use the cut metal to cut that inside metal, the inner part, but I'm leaving that part out. I'm only going to 33-inch tires, so I don't plan on cutting more. Otherwise, you would want to cut the inside metal a little bit so that this fender liner can actually come back a little bit more. So next thing I'm going to do now is deburr all my cuts, take off the tape, retape it, and then I'm going to spray paint it with white paint just to make sure everything is, or try to stop rust from happening. But before I do that, I'm actually going to hold up the fender just to make sure that I've cut off enough metal and enough liner. And on the liner, you also want to cut off, basically following the contour of the metal, all the way down like that, all the way down. In the front, right where it gets to the, kind of hard to do this, to the headlight bezel, you kind of grind it in a little bit more, and then straight down. Be careful not to cut through that rivet right there. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take this tape off, bring out the Bushwacker fender, and line it up to see what it looks like. So I brought the fender out here and checked for fitment before I do anything else. I also deburred all the metal so there's no sharp points to cut yourself later. I did find out I had to trim a little bit more of this piece here. I know it's kind of ugly, but it's be all hidden once it's said and done. deburred all the metal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically tape off the cut parts, and I'm going to use a little bit of paint, white paint, just regular white paint, just to kind of seal the metal so it won't start rusting or anything. But I think before I do that, I'm going to put the fender back up here, mark the holes, and I actually go ahead and pre-drill the holes, and then I'll do the painting. That way it can dry overnight, and then tomorrow morning I can come back out here and do the final installation. Something I forgot to mention is with the pocket flare kit, you're going to have to remove this Cherokee symbol, or the emblem, and I don't really have a good scraper, but I do have this scraper. I put some electrical tape on the sides to help protect the paint. It'll create kind of a gliding surface, and what you'll do is basically go up behind here, just kind of slowly work your way in there. The adhesive that Jeep used is like a very thick padding. It came off the other side really good. The challenge you'll have is, or the decision you have to make, is whether or not you want to put the badge back on or not. So as you can tell, it's kind of yellowed right there where the original C was, so it's been moved over, say, about 2 inches. So it's a little off-centered. I tried to line it up with the S a little bit, messed up a little bit, but anyways, it works for me. Some people just take out the Cherokee symbol and just sell it on eBay and don't even care about it. I decided to put it back on for whatever reason. So get yourself some like 3M adhesive, double-sided adhesive for automotive purposes, and you'll basically line the back of this so that you can stick it back on there. But for now, we're going to have to go over there and take off the emblem because it is something I do want to save. So most likely I'm going to line this E up with the T when it's all said and done and put it back on. So I'm going to take this off, then I'm going to mark my holes and drill, then I'm going to tape off and paint. Alright, so using the fender as a guide, you basically line it up here and you'll make little marks at each of the holes. And then per the instructions, you'll drill them out with a 3/16 drill bit. Nothing larger, otherwise the Torx bolts won't have any metal to grab onto. My next step now is I'm going to tape everything off. Everything I've cut, I'm going to actually spray with white paint. It's just whatever Rust-Oleum Home Depot had for metal. Not too concerned about it because you won't see it. I just don't want it to rust. As far as the drilled holes go, I'm going to be using blue thread locker. The instructions doesn't call for it, but I'm going to use it only because the torque for the bolts is actually in inch-pounds. You don't tighten these bolts very tight at all. I mean, if anything, it's just hand tight. Even without the ratchet, just turning the socket hand tight. Because of that, I'm using blue thread locker to keep it in place, and that blue thread locker should also help seal the metal a little bit as well. Alright, so I'm going to tape it up and start painting. So I've gone over the area with a little bit of white paint. Just kind of cover the bare metal. I also took the time to go ahead and clean off all the old glue residue from the Cherokee symbol. I'm going to take that in the house tonight, work on cleaning the actual badging itself in the back of it, get it cleaned up, ready to go tomorrow. And then while we're waiting for paint to dry, we have to go prep the fender itself. So while you're waiting for the paint to dry, what you can do inside is you want to install this rubber trim that Bushwacker provides, and it basically only goes on the top and outer surface. This one kind of came off a little bit. I'll work on that later. Anyways, you install this all the way around the top edge of the trim, all the way around, not the bottom part. You also want to put the bolts through that Bushwacker provides. You put it through, and they've also pre-cut these little rubber spacers, and they don't slip on there exactly, so you gotta hold on to the back side while you turn the T45 bolt, and you want to basically put these bolts in place. You don't want to snug these down too much because the more snug they are, the harder it will be to screw the bolts into the holes that you pre-drilled on the fender. And so what I'm going to do now is put a little bit of blue Loctite on each of these. It'll help seal the bare metal from the holes that I drilled on my fender, and hopefully it'll also give it some grip as well. So now I'm basically going to line up these bolts with the holes I pre-drilled already. And you want to make sure the inner fender liner goes inside the Bushwacker fender flares. And what I'll do is I will fasten loosely one of the top bolts just to kind of hold it in place for right now. So I get these lined up a little bit. And this is a T45 bolt. Once that's snugged down a little bit, you don't want to tighten them all the way. You just want to snug each one down just to kind of get them started. So at this point, I basically tightened these bolts just enough to where the rubber trim is touching the paint. And what you want to do is use this tool provided by Bushwacker, slip it on the end, and you basically want to make sure that the rubber trim is going to be on the outside of the trim, so you don't like cap or get it caught on the inside. And so far looking good, so I'm going to continue snugging these down. And like I said, I'm actually just using the T45 bit with an extension and only tightening it as tight as I can by hand. This will help ensure that you don't over tighten and strip it out, because once you strip out your sheet metal, you're kind of screwed. So I'll continue tightening these down. I'll make another pass with the trim tool. On this trim tool, it is easier if you start on the edge and work your way around. It's really actually pretty hard to get it in the middle. And of course, as it gets tighter, it's a little harder to move this tool around, but slow and steady. You don't want to break the tool. And then tighten some more. At this point, I'm ready to basically tighten by hand as much as I can. Alright, and that's it. So this time around, unlike my first fender I didn't cut too much back here. It fits perfectly, especially in the front, where I made the cut there at the leading edge, or the front edge, and then coming down a little bit. Yeah, I could have made that cleaner, especially in the front, where the other side I cut a little too much off. And I basically took it down like that to help prevent splash outs from the front of the bumper. This piece right here is going to get tucked in a little bit. If your Cherokee has a little vacuum thing right there, you'll have to work around it or just kind of zip tie it temporarily. Like I said, I will be replacing the bumper, so at that time I'll find a better solution. For now, I'm just going to find a hole, drill a hole through the liner, and just secure it with a zip tie. Alright, so as you can see, it is really sturdy. This is the finished product. And as you can tell, it would have covered the Cherokee sign, and of course it does cover the sport sign as well. Apparently my measurement may be just a little bit off, because I noticed I'm about, what, 1/16 of an inch lower on this side than the driver's side. But that's okay, it's just cosmetic. Alright, so that's really it. For those that prefer, if you want to actually cinch this down so you don't hear rattling inside the cab, you could drill a small pilot hole here, one on the other side, just use like a retaining, I don't know, those plastic retainers, and push it through. It'll help secure these two pieces together so that the inside one doesn't flap around. I'm not too worried about the front. That is the front fenders. And I heard the fun part comes now for the rear, since it's a lot more involved. So just like before, I'm going to do the driver's side on my own before I hit record, and then learn from my mistakes, and then I'll record for the passenger rear. It'll be the same set of instructions for both sides. All right.